Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Elizabeth von Isser. She is an engineer turned actor. And I don't know, maybe shame on me, but I didn't realize that there weren't many engineers turned actors. I mean, again, shame on me. A lot of people don't realize there are doctors turned actors. Of course, there are engineers turned actors. And now I've spoken to two incredible female engineers, now actors. Elizabeth has the coolest story. She has the coolest story ever. Obviously, career in engineering, and then deciding later on in life to pursue a more creative career in acting, filmmaking, writing, which she always had a passion for, but then really chose to lean into it again in her second act. The coolest thing, and you'll hear, I mean, she was cool all around, but one of the coolest things she did is she wrote a feature film. I mean, a lot of us have written things, short films, blah, 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 but she just went straight to feature film. Was like, I want to write this, and she did it. And I think the cool thing about that was, again, not only did she go whole hog into feature film land, but she wrote this feature film because she was realizing, okay, as I'm aging in this industry, the industry is becoming more and more ageist, and there's no roles for me anymore. So I'm going to write one for myself. And she did. I love her. I love her. You will too. Please enjoy Elizabeth von Isser. How did you get into this crazy business?
Well, it's been a very long, windy road. I got the acting bug when I was probably about 14. I was talked into auditioning for a freshman one-act play that was actually going to be a musical. And I went to audition. I'd never done anything like that before. And I ended up being cast in the lead and loved it, absolutely loved it. Started participating in all my high school's theater and, musical productions and things like that. Got to be sort of end of junior year. And my parents were asking what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go into musical theater. That's what I wanted to do. That was so fun. And my mom said, well, maybe you could do that as a hobby. Why don't you think about becoming an engineer like your dad and your brother? And I thought, oh, okay. I don't know. And she said, especially if you want us to pay for your college education. Mm-hmm. And she said, that way you can write your own ticket and you can still act and sing in your spare time. And so I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. So my senior year, I took a drafting class and I did really well in that. I've always been a good drawer. And I've been okay at math, not great, not brilliant at math, but okay. And so I did. I ended up going into engineering in college. I became a manufacturing engineer, which basically, for people who don't know, you take the designs from, say, the mechanical engineer, and you figure out how to actually produce it, how to make it. And so that's what I did. I worked in the defense industry for a number of years as a manufacturing engineer. I met my husband there. We worked in the same department and did the same thing. So we spoke the same language that way. And now we've been married for over 36 years. So that was a positive aspect of going into engineering for sure. Um, but it was never a passion of mine. And I sort of came and went a few times. I left once to raise our two sons, who are now young adults, so they're in their 30s now. And then after they were both in school, I went back to work. It was right after 9/11, and I felt like that was my way of contributing. So I went back to work, but then once they started going into high school, I decided I didn't want two teenage boys with too much time on their hands. So I left again, and decided it was time for me to do what I wanted to do. So I was an ensemble cast member of a faith-based theater company. I was director of drama at our church. I started painting again because I'd always painted on the side, and I got gallery representation, and I started doing that. I started copper and silversmithing jewelry, so I have a jewelry business too. And so primarily I was a theater actor in community theater. But one of my team members on my church drama team was also a film actor. And in addition to that, she was a flight attendant. And so she had been cast as a newscaster in a small independent film being shot here in Tucson, Arizona. That's where I am. And got called out at the last minute. So she convinced the director and the producer that she knew somebody who could step in and take her place. And I had never done film before. So it was a whole new experience. All I got was bring, two changes of clothes that would be appropriate for a newscaster, show up at this studio at this time. And I did, and they handed me a side. It was, about a paragraph long. And they said, okay, you've got a half hour to memorize this.
Oh my God.
And so I sat and I read and I got it memorized. And then it was just, lights, camera, action, and I was on. And of course, in this indie film, I'm visible maybe 3 seconds or 4 seconds or something like that. But it was very exciting. And I thought, oh, I really, really like this. I really like behind the being, in front of the camera. And so I started taking some classes and started doing a lot of volunteering for student films so I could get more experience. We have a terrific film school at the University of Arizona, where I am in Tucson. And so I started participating in a lot of student films. And then I got an agent, and I started getting some additional work. And there's quite a interesting and active indie film community in Southern Arizona. And so the more people I met, the more work I got. And I have gotten to the point in my career, I'm 65 now, and the opportunities for a woman my age became less and less and less and less. And the breakdowns that would come out, they're looking for someone 25 to 35, or at the maximum, maybe 40. If they're looking for someone over 50, it's for, the elderly grandmother who's dying of cancer, or the elderly woman that they want to have, and they specify silver hair, white hair, gray hair. And I'm thinking, you know what? I fit those parameters. Um, and I'm more than that.
Mhm.
And so I decided to write my own content.
Mm.
And I ended up writing a feature film. I'd never written a screenplay before, but I surrounded myself with people who are much more knowledgeable than I am about writing screenplays. And over the course of about a year and a half, I wrote a screenplay inspired by a true story that I read about in a book called The Pinks, which is all about the female Pinkerton agents back in the
Yes.
1800s.
Hmm.
And there was one particular sort of case file that was mentioned, and the way this female Pinkerton agent solved the crime was so unusual and unique. And I thought, oh, that would make a really good movie. And then I thought, well, I don't want to make a period piece because to do that well is really difficult.
Hmm.
So I set it in the near future where there's a big worldwide catastrophe that sort of knocks out technology. And anyway, we submitted it to some screenplay festivals, competitions, won some awards, and I thought, you know what? If not now, when? So we started casting. I started doing some fundraising. We have finished principal photography. We're in post production. It has turned out really, really good. And I'm going to AFM, to the American Film Market, in November to pitch it, which again is another first for me. So this whole, screenwriting was a first. And although I've acted before, I've never been number one on the call sheet before. And this time I was. And I was executive producing, never done that before. And I'm not sure I ever want to do that again. But it's all been a really great learning experience and growth experience for me. So, and fortunately, my family is incredibly supportive. And if they hadn't been, I there's no way I could have done what I have done so far. So anyway, so that's sort of where I am now.
Oh my gosh. That is incredible. Like, that is such a. I have so many questions for you. This is so cool.
Thank you.
Before I delve in, oh my gosh, you're doing so many incredible things. But take me back, just something that I'm like, no, I need to remember to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Take me back to when you made the decision to, like, you have two teenage kids at home,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, okay, I want to go back to, quote, work, but it's not engineering. There was you wanted to do something that you were saying, this is what you've always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Take me back to that decision. How did that come about? Were there people involved? Was it just you saying, no, now is my time? How did you know it was time to do this? What was that decision like?
Well, what I had been doing when I'd gone back to work and my boys were in school, I was working part-time as a contractor. So I would get them on the bus. I'd drive into work. I'd work for about 5, 6 hours. I'd drive back home, get them off the bus. And so they never knew I was missing, basically.
Mm.
And once they got older, their schedules became much more complicated.
Mm.
And so it became much more complicated for me to try to work semi-regular hours because they had different, musical practices, or they had late starts for school or early releases for school, and they weren't always on the same days. And it just became too much of a logistical nightmare to try and keep doing it. And so I sat down with my husband and just said, I want to stop. And fortunately, he said, absolutely, whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. So I did, and never looked back.
Now, is this a case of, and I've heard this from some other second act actors with partners like yourself, who they didn't know about the theatrical musical theater side of their partner until kind of something like this happened, and they went, oh, I didn't know this side of you. This is really interesting. Was that the case?
No, because I had already been doing some community theater in the evenings and weekends. So he knew that was something that I really enjoyed.
I think it's so interesting to, again, now build not just a career in acting, but then to see the way that the industry is. And instead of say, here's my white flag that I'm waving, it's no. So many people say, like, you have to make your own content. But then there seems to be like a wall that gets brought up because it's really hard to do that. It's very vulnerable. But you went out there and you did that. Tell me about how did you even start?
Well, it's kind of funny now when I look back and I read through the script and I think, how did I ever come up with that?
I'm brilliant.
Like, wow, that's really
Good at this. Yeah. I've definitely done that. So seriously, I've definitely done that.
I don't know. I mean, I just started, backing up just a little bit. I think if I knew what I was getting into, I probably would have been too afraid to do it. Because I sort of joke that I live by the bumblebee principle, in that aerodynamically, bumblebees really shouldn't be able to fly. Their bodies are way too big for their wings, but they don't know that, so they fly anyway. And I feel like I'm sort of the same way. I just think, oh, I think I'm going to do that. I don't necessarily know exactly how to do that. I am not necessarily trained in how to do that, which also leads to a lot of imposter syndrome. Because when I get around people who have trained to do that, and here I am, well, who do I think I am to do this? I've never gone to school for that. I've never specifically been trained for that. But I just try it. And I wish I could remember who said the quote. I'll have to look it up. But there's a quote that says, if you're going to fail, fail gloriously. And I thought, okay, that's sort of the way I work. I mean, I just jumped into the deep end of the pool with this feature film. I mean, a lot of people will like, oh, I'll try a short, I'll make a short, and then I'll learn from that and expand maybe into like a 40-minute. And then I'll learn from that, and then I'll jump into a feature. Well, I just jumped right into a feature film. And there were so many, even writing a screenplay, there's so many rules for how the screenplay is supposed to be formatted, and how the dialogue is supposed to be written, and how the action lines are supposed to be written. And I was just kind of feeling my way through, doing a lot of Googling and reading articles and relying on screenwriters that are here locally that helped me through some of that. My director spent countless hours with me helping refine the dialogue and things like that. As a matter of fact, he was helping me with the screenplay. And finally, I just said, why are you investing so much time and energy on this? And he said, well, I think it's a really good story. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I want to direct it. And it was like, oh, oh, okay. Well, I guess we're going to make a movie. And it just sort of went from there, just trying to learn, finding out what rules are really more suggestions rather than rules. But also realizing that there are a lot of rules that need to be followed. And we did end up going SAG ultra low budget. So that meant now we've got a whole bunch of SAG union rules that we need to follow. And what I thought was, going to be something that I could possibly fund out of my own pocket became something much larger than that. That I was going to really have to go out and try and do some fundraising and get some other people involved. And that is really, really difficult for me. I mean, that is just way outside my wheelhouse. So, yeah, that's probably been the hardest thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Something that you said as well, and I'm curious about, is the people you've learned from. Like you're saying, in Tucson, there's a big indie community, all the student films you've worked on, you start to build. Something that I've noticed talking to most people on this podcast is the idea of building and finding a community, because we didn't go to theater school or film school, so we didn't come out with a built-in community. We had to find it ourselves.
Right.
Tell me more about finding that. And it sounds like for you, and I know what can be tough in this industry is there are a lot of gatekeepers being like, yes, there are a lot of rules and we're not going to tell you them. But it sounds like you've had a great community supporting you along the way.
Yes, absolutely. I think, as some of those student filmmakers, because now I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. So over those 10 years, many of the student filmmakers that I originally worked with are now actually working in the industry. And our film commission here in Tucson holds a mixer every month for the film community. And so going to those, I get to meet new people that, I haven't met before. And it is a pretty small community in that there's a lot of word of mouth. And, if somebody is looking for someone who I would fit that category, they'll say, hey, have you worked with Elizabeth before? She worked on X, Y, and Z, and you might want to give her a call and see. So, so it didn't happen overnight, that's for sure. But just trying to make those connections and help people along the way. I try to help people, with a little bit of financial help whenever they're doing like a GoFundMe or an Indiegogo or something like that, having to do with a short or a film that they're doing, or I'll volunteer my time. And I just, I think that while in my film, Kate Hugo is the name. Kate Hugo, Murder After Mayhem is the name of my feature film. I wanted to make sure everybody got paid. And of course, since we were doing SAG ultra low budget, we had to make sure that we were able to pay everybody. But, I think there's differing opinions about working for free. But it's my opinion that, especially with a filmmaker who's just starting out, I don't care how old they are. They could be my age, they could be 80. I don't care how old they are. But if they're just trying to get started, I think by helping people and volunteering your time and providing whatever services you can provide, it ends up in the long run coming back tenfold.
Yeah.
Maybe not tenfold, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It does come back in a different way. And you find then people who are willing to help you.
Yes.
And so I think that's what community is all about. So
I love that. And I think especially in smaller city centers with industries that are just growing. I know I'm in Canada, in Toronto, we're just growing, and you hear about the build that's happening in some of the other states that aren't as well known, Arizona and all stuff like that, to compete against these juggernauts in like LA's and New York's of the world. We have to build this community and find the people and amplify some of this newer generation, whatever age they are.
Right.
Otherwise, it just won't work. Yeah. I'm curious about if you've noticed anything that you've pulled from your engineering career into now your entertainment industry career.
Well, definitely, I think it's been very helpful. I believe that I'm probably very equally left and right brained. So organizationally, I have a lot of skills in that area. And acting is a business. And so there's a whole business aspect to it, even if you're not doing your own books and you're not creating your own contracts and things like that. There's still a matter of scheduling and just being responsible, showing up on set on time, behaving appropriately as a professional on set, that all of those things, working as an engineer, set me up to do well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was chatting with, and I'll never forget this conversation. I was actually chatting with one of the casting directors, a big casting director here in Canada. And I was talking to him about how I know a lot of people who have entered into this industry later on in life can sometimes have this feeling that the train has left the station and we are trying to catch it. And we're like competing against all these other actors and actresses who have been doing this since they were 4. And we wasted all this time in engineering school, me in medical school. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, what? He's like, in what world does all of your life experience just vanish in a puff of smoke when you decide to pivot? Everything you've done is a foundation of who you are as an individual, and that's the actor we want to see, and that's the director, that's the producer, that's the writer we want to see. You're like, whew, thank goodness.
True. Yeah. Well, and just life experience in general, regardless of what your past work experience has been. I think that the entertainment industry doesn't take advantage of more mature actors necessarily, because we have an incredible life experience with all sorts of highs and lows. And those are all experiences that we can bring to a character that someone who is much younger than we are, just, it's not that they're not good actors, but
Yeah.
they don't necessarily have all of that life experience to draw from.
Yes.
And yeah, so I would like to see, I'd like to see the entertainment industry loosen up a little bit when it comes to the ageism. I think it's really detrimental to the industry, that, especially for women. I mean, men over the age of 50 seem to have plenty of opportunities.
Yeah.
But it's like once women hit 50, you're like, ugh, nobody wants to see that. It's like,
Yeah.
really? Yeah, I want to see that.
Yes. I want to see life. That's what people want. They want to see, themselves in who's on the screen.
Right.
Whether that's somebody their age, but also somebody, it can be generations age-wise apart, but you have something in common with that person on screen.
Right.
What do you think? So there's the argument, because everyone can now pull examples of things that they're showing now on screen that they've making a change. Have you seen an actual change in audition numbers, types of auditions you're getting over the last, say, 5 years? Or is it just a lot of kind of, a lot of talk and not actually any action?
Yeah, I haven't seen much change. No, I haven't. Maybe for name actors. I am seeing more name women mature actors in roles that I hadn't seen them in before. But for someone who isn't like an A-list actor, no, I haven't seen any difference. It's like 2 lines as somebody's, crazy aunt, or, somebody's grandma, or yeah. There just isn't much meaty quality material out there that I've seen, that I've come across.
Yeah, it's funny. So I saw something online that was, here's all of the stereotypes that that Hollywood has that they're trying to break. But the last one that just can't quite be vanquished is ageism. It's just something that, I don't know, I don't really know why. I don't think anyone knows why. I mean, there's tons of reasons, I think, but it seems to be that last thing that they're just, I don't know. It's very frustrating, and I don't understand. My logical brain does not understand. Because there's talented actors out there. There's stories to be told that could be financially successful, but they just won't take the gamble to see. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I think the UK does a much better job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In my film, I play an FBI agent, and who's investigating a murder, and in the UK, there are all sorts of really, really successful, popular crime dramas that have leading ladies, that are certainly well over 40, if not older than that. And they're popular, hugely popular.
Yes.
Why we don't get the memo, I don't know.
Yeah. I can't, my logical science brain doesn't understand why they won't get going on this research project. Do the experiment. It has clearly worked in other areas of the world.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
So again,
I know it's always frustrating for me when I see, and I can't, point to a specific example, but when I see, say, a crime drama, whether it's a movie or a TV, and the female lead is supposed to have 20 years, experience on the force, but yet she looks like she's 35 and she's wearing, 6-inch heels and a tight skirt, and I'm thinking, what?
Yeah, yeah. This like child prodigy. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because they want so often an authentic casting. Now, that's what they say, right? And I make jokes to people all the time of like, you want a real doctor? Hi, present, me. Like, but you don't look like a real doctor. I'm like, yeah, but I am one. We want somebody who has 20 years experience. Like a real doctor. Exactly. We want someone with like 30 years of life experience. You're like, hi, me. I've been alive longer than that. Like, but you don't, I don't know. It's such a weird visual industry. Again, like you were saying, in the States, where, when you compare it to anything on like BritBox, I'm like, it's completely different.
Completely. Yep.
Yeah. Besides the rampant ageism in this industry, has there been anything that has been surprising to you that you weren't expecting?
Well, one thing that was surprising to me, again, so this might be a different sensibility. There was a production company that came over to Southern Arizona to film a movie. It's called The Wall. We're actually having our U.S. premiere in a week or so. So it was a French, Belgian, Luxembourgian consortium film. And they brought primarily their crew, and then I think just 2 main characters, Vicky Krieps, who, she was in Phantom Thread with Daniel Day-Lewis. She was in old M. Night Shyamalan's Old. She just played Empress Elizabeth of Austria in Corsage. She's a quite well-known actor, and then a Danish actor named Simon Sears. They brought those 2 over, but then they cast every other role locally. And so in that particular film, I play Vicky Krieps' mother. And it was like, this is awesome.
So cool.
And it was more than just 2 lines. Yay.
Yes.
So that to me showed me that, here were these people from a different country came to the States and assumed that they would just find talent to cast in Arizona.
Yeah.
And they did. And so I thought that was pretty darn cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's funny because we see that in Canada quite a bit, but we also see something that makes all Canadian actors just rage, in that they will bring in the bigger name stars, of course, are from the US. They'll film in Toronto, call it Detroit, and or Baltimore or whatever, decrepit dystopian USA. But they'll even fly in some actors from the States to be the 2-line barista saying, "Here's your coffee, sir." And all of us here in Canada are like, I'm right here. I can literally see the film studio from my house. I'll just walk. You don't even have to, I'm just right here.
Right.
So there's a weird, yes, we want to hire locals, but there's also a weird flip, especially for the bigger productions, being like, no, we're just going to 737 all the bit parts over from LA.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. It doesn't really make much sense.
It's I guess a real lack of I don't know, trust, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and and I'm not sure I'm not sure how to overcome that, except you just keep doing what you're doing and showing that, we've got what you need right here.
Yeah. I
So,
think it comes exactly right back to what we were talking about. Like, how do you build up a smaller city's entertainment
mhm,
industry? And like you're saying, you need to prove your worth. Like, you need to showcase that you are capable.
right,
It's a money driven industry. And why would they risk when you don't have anything to back up that you're worth the risk? So you got to show them that you do. That's a
right.
great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any favorite moments on set in your, I know you do, we were talking before we started recording about you do fictional podcasts as well too, voiceover work. Do you have any
Yeah.
favorite moments?
Um, well, as far as, well, I'll mention a couple. One with the scripted audio drama. I played a lead in a soap opera podcast called Forever and a Day. And I played the matriarch of this fictional town in Illinois. And it was so much fun. We recorded 5 seasons, and I got to voice act with some of soap opera's royalty. And so now, I'm sort of on a first name basis with, drop names, but
Do it, do it.
but it was so cool. And I was never a huge soap opera fan growing up. I was sort of like in college. I watched Days of Your Lives, but that was about it. But now I've had a chance to work with Beth Ehlers, who was in Guiding Light, Frank DeCopolis, who was in Guiding Light. Oh gosh, Tanya Walker. I mean, lots of people who, if you were a soap opera person, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't. And so that has been really awesome experience to learn how to present my acting vocally without being seen and still, express the emotions because so much is visual.
Yes.
And so I listen back to some of my recordings from the first season or even the second season, and I think, oh, you sound kind of dull. You sound kind of boring. You sound kind of, because I was just, vocalizing the same way I would say on film. But because you have to really kind of amp that up just a little bit emotion wise, I don't think I was coming across quite as well, but I was learning as I went because that was my first scripted audio drama. So since then, I think I've gotten better, and certainly by season 5, I hope I got better. But that was a lot of fun.
So
Um,
cool.
and then on film, so in the movie The Wall with Vicky Krebs. Um, so I have to act with 2 children, a 4-year-old and an infant. Now, I have never had to be on set with small children. And so the 4-year-old was a breeze. the actor Simon Sears and I actually got together with her and her parents ahead of time, met her, played with her, so she felt comfortable with us because Simon was playing her father and I was playing her grandmother. And so, we played games with her, and she felt comfortable with us on set, and so she was wonderful to work with. But then there was a scene where she has a younger sibling who's an infant, and so I'm thinking like an infant, and the production team found this baby, I'm using air quotes, and the baby had to weigh 25 pounds. And he was huge. And I'm supposed to be carrying this baby around, and not only, I am 65, right? Bad back. And so I said, and this baby was very much attached to his mother. So anytime we tried to make the transfer of the baby to me, he would start screaming.
Oh, no.
So we would have to wait till the baby was asleep and then try and very carefully bring the baby over to me and try not to, And so I got to the point where I was having difficulty just doing these scenes over and over and over again at carrying this very large baby. And so I said, is there a stroller? Maybe we could put the baby in a stroller. And they were like, no, we don't use a stroller.
Okay.
And I said, okay, do you have a carrier of some sort? Yes, we have a front pack carrier. So then it was a matter of trying to transfer the baby into this front pack carrier without the baby weight. Oh gosh. Yeah. It was very stressful. And then in the scene where I'm holding this baby, I'm supposed to be very upset and yelling. And I don't want to wake the baby.
Oh my God.
So I said it right, and the baby would wake up and start screaming. I'm so sorry. So then I was like saying my life like this. Trying not to wake up the baby.
It's amazing. It's one of those things where I can only imagine when you're in it just being like, how is this my life right now? That is fantastic.
Oh, man.
I love that story. It's so good.
So we'll see how that scene turned out when I go to the premiere.
The whole time you're going to be like, oh, I know what was happening the whole time. Oh, that's fabulous.
Oh, man.
Oh my gosh. Do you have, well, I think you may have answered this, but I'd love just a bit more specifics. But do you have anything you're looking forward to coming up?
Oh, yes. So with Kate Hugo, Murder After Mayhem, we are in post-production. We will not be quite finished. We've sort of hit a financial brick wall. So we still have color correction and audio mixing and color, all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to AFM in November, and I'm going to pitch it. Again, that's a whole new experience. Never been to AFM before. Never had to pitch a film before. So I'm, watching a lot of YouTube videos. I'm taking some online classes on AFM and sales agents and distributors and things like that. So I'm not completely, walking in blind. So that's coming up November, early November. Then I get back into town in mid-November. I start filming another film that I wrote. That is, it's, I guess, a short, but it's like 45 minutes long. So it's going to be a part of like a mystery anthology.
Ooh,
that will go onto a streaming platform.
cool.
So, yeah, so I'm excited about that. It's sort of a mystery thriller, and it's called Bella. And I came up with that. We had a dog named Bella, who was the best dog in the world. Absolutely the best dog in the world. And we had her from a puppy till she was about 12, and then we lost her. But she was like the most loyal, the most sweetest dog. And I started thinking to myself, what would I do if someone had hurt her? And so then it evolved to, what would I do if someone would have killed her? And then it evolved to, I would haunt them and exact revenge for her death. That's what I would do. And so that's what this film is about. It's me coming back to haunt the person who killed my dog.
I love it. I'm like, my cat is out of the corner of my eye here, and I'm like, when you were saying that, I'm like, yes, I would do the same. That's cool. What a great idea.
Yeah.
And like, what a great role to play. Like, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's gonna be
so
fun.
cool. So cool.
Yeah. And that's with a young filmmaker that I call him young. I mean, he's younger than me. I don't know how old he is. I don't know, 30s, 40s. I don't know. But I've done a number of films with him, and I really appreciate him and like to help him grow as a filmmaker. And so that's a film that I'm doing with him, and I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
If you have an idea, expand on it. If you have a desire to do something, don't wait for somebody else to give you permission to do it. Just do it. I have met, since I wrote Kate Hugo, I have met a lot of people who have said, oh, I started writing a screenplay, but then I haven't worked on it for a long time. Or, well, I have this idea, but I haven't really done anything with it. Or, well, I'm waiting to, get an opportunity from my agent. And I think, you know what? Go out and find your own work. I mean, even right now I'm self-represented. I don't have an agent at the moment. But even when I did, I was still searching for work myself. And if I would get a role, I considered myself a partner with my agent, and I would go ahead and even though I got the part myself, I would give them their 10% because I wanted them to feel like this was a mutual teamwork type situation. But you can't sit around and wait for somebody else to give you the opportunities that you're looking for. And if you're going to fail gloriously.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you Elizabeth for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to share your story with me and with my guests. I'm going to put links to everywhere you can find what she's doing below. She's got some incredibly cool stuff coming up, as you heard. I hope you will follow her and support her. Just support everyone. Support everyone trying to do the darn thing, y'all. We're making the world a better place, sharing stories, and really trying to build legacy here, and just celebrating careers in whimsy, because they're so important. This is all supposed to be fun. Okay, enough of my rants. I hope you will all tune in next week. Oh my gosh. I hope you'll all tune in next week. Oh, this is what happens when I get on a tirade. I get all blah, blah, blah. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.